And now at this time, those of you in our radio listening audience, we don't want to take any more time out as Minister Louis Farrakhan is in the building and with us and back in Chicago, Illinois. But right now I want to bring up one of his close aides that you have heard before speaking from these microphones, where, as I said before, the real revolution is taking place. Will you please welcome with a rousing Chicago round of applause for Brother Abdul Allah Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his apostle. Brothers and sisters, I do not want to take away from the precious time that we have to hear Minister Farrakhan. As Brother Rodney has pointed out, yesterday in Detroit, he opened up a whole new spectrum, and we know that the people of Chicago definitely need to be put on key, because what he dealt with is the root of all of the problems that we think are in and of themselves our principal problems. All of the symptoms that we've got people working on individually as problems, he is dealing now with the problem underlying all the other problems. And that is a message that we need him to have all the time to explore on the air for those who are not able to be here. So I would like, without anything else, just to bring before you at this time the man of this and all the coming hours between here and freedom, our minister, Minister Louis Farrakhan. Assalamu alaikum.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. I greet you in our radio listening audience and here at the Final Call building with the greeting words of peace. Assalamu alaikum. I did not think that I would be here today, but thanks to Allah, we are here and very grateful to be here. We had a very wonderful day yesterday in Detroit, Michigan, where approximately 3,000 persons paid $3 at 3 o'clock in the afternoon to come and hear the lecture, Politics Without Economics is Symbol Without Substance. And I must thank the FOI, Fruit of Islam from Chicago, and those MGT and FOI from Detroit for doing such a magnificent job in getting the tickets and in 5 days turning out that kind of audience. It was a great testimony to the power of Allah, first and foremost, and a great testimony to the unity and hard work of the believers. And I am very, very grateful to you for that effort. Chicago, of course, is home, and we will be back in Chicago with a major meeting in October. But Chicago is going to have to go some to beat some of these other cities that are jumping up, claiming your brother. Detroit was filled with spirit. I have not seen such magnificent spirit in our people as I witnessed in Detroit yesterday. St. Louis the week before was marvelous, and Miami the week before that was marvelous. To see black men and women coming out not to hear a song or see a dance or to participate in a dance, but to pay $3 to come out and hear a lecture, and to see our people lined up hours before the doors open to try and get in to hear their brother, I think it is a testimony to the power of the word of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and how that word, no matter how much you think it is passé, or something that is a relic of the past and needs to be left in the past. That message is definitely for the past, but it is for the present. And as it begins to unfold, it is a message definitely for the future. Today, I thought I would come out, hoarse as I may be, to talk to you about an article that I'm writing or have written for the Final Call newspaper that should be out this coming week. This article is titled "The Obsolescence of the Black Man and Woman." The obsolescence of the black man and woman. According to Webster's dictionary, the word obsolescence or obsolete means the process of becoming useless. The process of becoming useless. Again, there's a quote from the book of John where Jesus comes to Lazarus, his friend, and that quote says, "The Master is come and calleth for thee." All of this is the subject. And lastly, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, before his departure from among us, said these words: "You have to be worth something in order to be saved." You have to be worth something in order to be saved. Now, in order to establish worth, one must be useful. For it is only through utility that we establish worth. To be useful means to be of some material benefit, to be productive, to supply some need, to be useful. Whenever something loses utility, in that process, it loses its value. In this society, the black man and woman are quickly losing value. If we have no value in the society, then the society must move to get rid of something that has no value. Now, in the law of use, you can forfeit your right to ownership through non-use, misuse, or abuse. If you own something and refuse to use it, there's an old saying, if you don't use it, you lose it. If that is so, then the words I am about to speak could be very, very explosive. For in the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's last message that he gave us in 1974, he made a very strong hint. He said, and I quote, that the white people came to North America as strangers, and they took the land from the American Indian. He said, well, they weren't doing anything with it. Then he said, well, we're strangers too, and went on. that laid heavily on my mind. And over these last 13 years, I've had a lot of time to think about the law of use. You cannot have land and not cultivate it and develop it or use it. If you don't use it, then someone else can claim what you refuse to use. If your children are yours and you abuse your children, someone can come and take your children from you and deprive you of the right of your children through misuse or abuse. Is that correct? What law are they using when they take your children? It's the same law that they use when they take your land. You don't use it, you have forfeited your right to it. But on the other hand, if you misuse it or abuse it, you forfeit your right of ownership. We live in America where white people have taken the land from the Red Indian through the law of non-use. However, the Caucasian people have misused and abused the land and those on it. Does that mean they now have forfeited their right to the land and their right of stewardship over the people? This is a very powerful law. And it behooves every one of us to think clearly. You have a wife, you have a husband. If you abuse your wife, you shouldn't have her. You have no right, brother, to beat up your wives. Through misuse and abuse, someone else has the right to lay claim to what you think is yours. You forfeit the right to your own wife by abusing her. You forfeit the right to your own children by abusing them. You forfeit your right to ownership of the land by abusing or misusing it. How does that fit in with today's quest on the part of the people for land? In the Holy Quran, Allah says, the kingdom is His, and He takes it from whom He pleases, and He gives it to whom He pleases. Well, what are we saying here? If America, through abuse of the land and the people on the land, have forfeited their right to the land, we don't have the power to take it from them, but He in whose hands is all power says He takes the kingdom from whom He pleases, and He gives it to whom He pleases. In the parable that Jesus gave to the Jews, a parable of the wicked husbandman. If you recall the parable, the vineyard was let out into the hand of some wicked husbandmen. And these wicked husbandmen evidently were not careful about their duty with respect to the vineyard. So every now and then, the owner would send someone into the vineyard to check and see how they were doing with the vineyard. Some of those that the owner sent were beaten, and the heir to the vineyard was killed. And then Jesus asked the Jews, what will the owner of the vineyard do when he comes. And the Jews answered, saying, he will utterly slay them. Then Jesus told them they had spoken correctly. He then explained the parable, that the vineyard was a parable of the world. And the world was let out into the stewardship of some wicked husbandmen. They weren't bringing in the fruits. The fruits here means they were not making righteous people submitting to the will of God. So God sent prophets into the world to check the spread of evil. Some they beat, some they imprisoned, but the heir to the vineyard, who really is called Jesus, they killed. So who now, or what shall be done with the wicked? They answered, saying, will be utterly slain. Jesus didn't say, oh no. He said, you have spoken correctly. For the kingdom will be taken from you and given to a nation that will bring in the fruits thereof. Then Jesus said, have not you heard that the stone that the builders rejected, the same is become the headstone of the corner? This is the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our sight. The law of use. Let us extract another parable from the Bible to see a firm witness of this law of use. Jesus entered Jerusalem, and he told two of his disciples, go, and you will find a donkey. He used the word an ass. And a colt with her that are tied. Is that right? He said, loose them and bring them to me. And if any man say anything, tell them the Lord hath need of them. Now we may have passed over that scripture many times. But all praise is due to Allah for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the guidance that he has given to us in understanding and properly interpreting the divine word of God. Yes, sir. Here Jesus is making practical use of the law of use. A donkey is tied, and with her a young colt is tied. If the animal is tied, that means it is not in service. It is not being used. The donkey was not made to be tied. The donkey was made to be used. The colt was not made to be tied. The colt was made to be used. By these two beasts of burden being tied, they were not in use. So Jesus instructed his disciples, go and untie them and bring them to me. Well, why should any man say anything? Jesus said, and if any man say anything, and I say, why should any man say anything? If they accuse Jesus of stealing, he said, if any man say anything, what could they say? Hey man, where you going with that donkey and that colt? Can't you see a tie on it that it belonged to somebody? Hey man, where you going with my donkey? Hey man, where you going with my colt? And Jesus said, if any man say anything, just tell him, the Lord hath need of them. Well, what do we care if the Lord have need of my donkey? That's my donkey. That's my coat. You tell the Lord, keep on stepping. But nobody said anything. Why didn't they accuse the master of stealing the donkey? Surely Jesus, the Son of Righteousness, would not ask his followers to start stealing. But he told his disciples, go and loose them things and bring them to me. And if anybody say anything, tell them, the Lord hath need of them. That's a heavy, heavy scripture. Any relationship between the ass or the donkey and you and me is not coincidental. No. We have been the white man's beast of burden. For 432 years, our fathers, our mothers have been used to carry the burden of this society. Is that right? But now the donkey is tied up. The master has no more use for his beast of burden. 34% of black people in America live in poverty. 15% of our adult workforce is unemployed. And 42% of our youth are unemployed. This tells me there's a huge pool of workers tied up, not doing anything. The government says we must cut back, meaning we're not going to do anything. The private sector of the government, which generally creates the jobs by production of what people consume, is cutting back. And the private sector says, we don't need them. Well then, the master has come and calleth for thee, that even though you're a donkey tied up, even though you're a young colt, meaning a learned one, but not being used. A young colt is the offspring of a horse, and the horse is a very highly intelligent animal. We're not talking about the old horse. We're talking about a young colt, which means that there's a pool of young black intellectuals, male and female, who are not being used. They're tied up with the donkey, with the unlearned masses of the people. They're tied up, and nobody is making use of them. But the Lord has come, and he's sending his disciples to go and untie the tied up masses and untie the young black intellectuals and say, come on, we have need of you. And if any man say anything, if Reagan say anything, if the government say anything, if white folks say anything, be quiet. Because the man should have been put to use. And since you have no more need of him, no more use for him, then the master has come and calleth for thee. Obsolescence of the black man leads to death. Look, beloved, you tied up. What are you tied with? You are tied up to the man that don't want to use you by your name, by your false concept of the religion of Jesus. You're tied up to him by his wicked way of civilization. The names you wear are not yours, but they tie you to your slave master. If you're Jim Brown, Sadie Culpepper, George Washington Carver Lincoln, these names are not your names. These are the names of your former European slave masters and their children. So whatever you do in their name, they get the credit. God says, untie them. That means get them out of the slave master's name. That means get them out of the slave master's way of religion. What did you say? I said, get them out of the slave master's way of religion. You refer to yourself as a Christian, a person who is in love with Christ and wants to work the will of God through Christ and to become Christ-like. There is nothing wrong with that. But the way you carry out your Christianity, you become a servant of white people under religious dogma and concepts that are absolutely false. They have painted Jesus to you as a white man. They have painted heaven to you as filled with white people. They have painted a religion for you that makes you acquiesce and submit to the rule of white people, and you don't want to overthrow their rule, because to overthrow their rule is to symbolically replace Jesus in your mind as king. But if Jesus is king, and he is, and he's a white king, you need to overthrow him, because there's no justice in such kingdom for you. No white Christian has given the black man justice. This mocking of Jesus cannot be tolerated by the righteous. Using Jesus' holy name on a governmental system that is as far removed from Jesus as Satan is from God. The government of America claims to be a Christian government, but we don't find any love of Jesus, any mercy, any justice in such people. Is that right? Then what kind of religion are you practicing? You are tied up, yoked, not to the plow of Jesus Christ. You are yoked to a false concept that makes you a free slave that does not want to get up from the foot of your white master and go for yourself. You are just like the Bible's Lazarus, sitting and begging. Give me a job. You got something for me to do? Give me a dime. Give me $1. The poor man sits and begs and is full of sores. And the rich man hates him, doesn't want him around. So the rich man is training pit bulls to sick the dogs on the beggar. The beggar doesn't want to get up from the foot of his master and do something for himself. Our pastors and preachers and teachers are not feeding their congregations properly, that our congregations may get up from the foot of the white man and begin to chart an independent course that will be good for our people. It is that kind of religion that we must be loosed from. So the master sent his disciples, loose them. Loose them from a way of civilization that is death itself. The Bible says there's a way that seemeth right unto a man, but the ends thereof are the ways of death. You smoke and it seems right, but the ends are the ways of death. You drink and it seems right, but the ends thereof are the ways of death. You pop your pills and smoke your reefer and blow your crack and put the needle in your veins. It's a way that seemeth right, but the ends thereof are the ways of death. You play with fornication and adultery, and you play with homosexuality, And it seems all right, but the ends thereof are the ways of death. You are on a course of death, black man and woman, because you have been phased out in American society. And could this then be the reason why you are being strung up today in cities across America, seen hanging with your throat slit? In many cities now, hanging of black people is coming back in vogue like the miniskirt. In cities across the country, whites don't ask any questions, shoot you down. Could this be the reason that our black women are being molested and dismembered and killed brutally in cities across America? They're not talking about this on the national news because it would alarm you at the rate that black people are being killed. You're being killed and you are forfeiting your right to life because you are useless. Useless to this society, and you are useless to yourself. So now you, in your state of uselessness, see no value in your own life. So you take your own life degree by degree. You kill another black man or woman at the drop of a hat. I was walking in Phoenix, Arizona, and a car pulled up. And a brother said, "Hey, Farrakhan." And we began to talk. And a car was parked nearby. And I just happened to sit on the fender. And a man came out, naked to the waist, flexing his muscles. He said, "You don't have to sit on my car. Get up off my car." I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, brother. I didn't realize I was hurting you." And with a smile, I got up. I wanted to lay something on his brain. Here's a brother of mine, crazy as hell. He's coming out of his house to harm his brother for sitting on metal that can't feel my weight and can't say ouch. But that car got used to that black man, and he have no use for me. We have use in our suits and our shoes, but we have no use for one another. So we are replacing the white man as the number one killers and murderers and abusers and destroyers of ourselves. Useless, obsolete. Let's look a little further. The white people in the government say, yes, we don't have a job for them, but let's put them in the armed forces so we can use them. That's what a nigger is for. Use the nigger. So if there's a problem in Nicaragua, send the nigger. If there's a problem with Iran, send the nigger. If there's a problem, we want to get rid of the communist regime in Cuba, send the nigger. Yes, and even if we want to protect our interests in South Africa, send the nigger. But be sure you train the nigger. Train him to kill, not kill us. Train him to kill whoever we sick him on. And so if you refuse to go in the Army or the Navy, and there's no job for you, then you are absolutely useless, and therefore death is the answer for something that has no value. Are you listening? Yes. Now, beloved, according to Newsweek magazine, there's a black health crisis in the United States. We are disproportionately more sufferers of cancer, hypertension, stroke. We are disproportionately more suffering of AIDS, drug abuse, alcohol abuse. So the normal birth-death rate of black people is higher than it should be. According to Newsweek magazine, there are 59,000 excess deaths in the black community each year. That's more than the total deaths in the Vietnam War in 9 years. 59,000 excess deaths of black people each year. These high figures are related directly to poverty and the results of poverty. So poverty is a part of the cycle of genocide. Keep them in poverty, keep them dying. How can we consider ourselves passionate lovers of our people, so-called leaders of our people, and not address the problem of poverty? We can preach the gospel till the words come off the pages. But unless we implement programs and strategies to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, shelter the homeless, we are not following Jesus. We are mere pipers of a word, but not working to bring that word into reality. Let me show you, beloved, how we are now in the valley of the shadow of death. We have always been under the shadow of death, but it is more so now than it ever was in the history of our sojourn in America, because the white man made laws to protect his slave, because you were useful to him as a slave. You had a job then. But when you became free, quote unquote, and troublesome, you became dangerous. So now the master killed his slave with impunity, because if you were not going to be useful to him, he was going to make sure you were not going to be useful to yourself. That's wickedness. But look at this. Even with 59,000 excess deaths among black people due to all of those causes that I aforementioned, yet the students of population, called demographers, say that in a few years, whites in the industrial nations, particularly white America, will be at zero population growth, which means that for every baby born, one white person will die, which means that there will be no appreciable increase in the population of white people. There was even a big article in Newsweek magazine, are we, not you, are we, meaning white people, having enough babies? And the fact of the matter is, white people rejoice. Whenever one of them gets pregnant, that's a big thing, because it's becoming a rare thing. If you study the Bible, in the book of Deuteronomy, when God is talking to Israel and giving Israel a law, he said, if you obey my law, all of these blessings will come unto you. But if you disobey and transgress my law, all of these curses shall come unto you. Cursed shall you be in the city. Cursed shall you be in the country. Cursed shall be your basket. Cursed shall be your store. Cursed shall be the fruit of the ground. Cursed shall be the fruit of the womb. God is cursing this enemy that has transgressed his laws. And now they can't produce babies even though they want to have them. And we can't stop having them even though we don't want to have them. God is blessing the womb of the black woman. According to these demographers, while in a few years there will be zero population growth among white people, they see the birth rate of blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans continuously rising. And so, they say, by the year 2080, just 93 years from now, they say that if things continue at its present rate, the dark people of the United States will be the majority population in just 93 years. Listen now, I'm going to say that again. You that love to call yourself the minority, we minorities, in less than 100 years, you will be able to say, we the majority. And white folks who are the real minority on the earth will have to say they are a minority in the land where they said, we the people. When they wrote the Constitution and said, we the people, they were not thinking about black people. You were not people in those days. You were chattel and property in those days. We the people, a government of the people, meaning of the white people, for the white people, by the white people. Just remember that, Reverend Jackson. Just remember that, you black politicians, that the white man never intended for you to be a master in his land. Now, if you were Ronald Reagan or one of the conservative members who think like Ronald Reagan, if you were Colonel North, an admirable Poindexter, if you were one of those who think like those, seeing these figures which are now made public but which have been known by white people for a long time, if you were a racist, a white racist, who believed that this country is for white people, by white people, and of white people, and knew that in less than 100 years white people would be a minority, and that blacks, through the overuse of the sex organ, could breed ourselves into power with an indestructible weapon. And while the white man is looking for you to come at him with one kind of gun, if you were a racist, a white racist, who believed that this country is for white people, by white people, and of white people, and knew that in less than 100 years white people would be a minority, and that blacks, through the overuse of the sex organ, could breed ourselves into power with an indestructible weapon. And while the white man is looking for you to come at him with one kind of gun, you come at him with another kind, shooting him in the dark. 'Tain't funny, McGee. It's not funny because the enemy, when he sees this, under the guise of national security, he cannot make this public policy or public debate. It has to be a covert operation coming out of the basement or the second floor of the White House. How are we going to deal with the Negroes, the Hispanics, and the Native Americans 100 years from today? As smart as they are becoming, as much as they're trying to organize with just a little power in 2083, there not only will be a black president or a Hispanic vice president, but there'll be the Secretary of State, Minister of Defense in this country that we, the white people, set up for us white folks. Well, what are you going to do about it? Good God Almighty. We are losing control of our borders, they say. And the Mexicans are flooding up from Mexico into New Mexico that used to be old Mexico. Flooding up into Texas, which used to be northern Mexico. Flooding up into California, which used to be Mexico. The Mexicans are coming. And the Mexicans are populating. And the Mexicans don't have any trouble with their birth rate. Lord, look at the Native Americans. They are having babies. We fed them disease blankets in the past. We put them on the reservation and give them bad food and fill them with alcohol. And now with drugs, but Lord, they're having babies. What are we going to do? Obsolescence leads to death. And because they see that you are coming into power and in a short while, your death is already planned now. And whether you want to believe it or not, death of black people is going to be widespread in America. They are filling their people with arms. You hear me? Selling arms like arms are going out of style. And they are subtly programming their people to kill the black man and woman. Take it or let it alone. They don't intend for you to become a power in America. They don't intend for no Jesse Jackson to become president of a white country. They didn't want Mayor Washington to mind their store. But as long as he minds their store according to their wish, he can continue to be the mayor, but he will never be the owner. And so, we are in the valley of the shadow of death. And you need a shepherd today that can lead you in this critical hour. Who is the shepherd? Who will come? Who will take charge of this that has become obsolete and make it valuable? Lazarus was dead. Martha was crying. Had you been here, Jesus, he would not have died. They said the one you love is dead. Jesus said, no, he's not dead. He's just asleep. When Lazarus was a beggar, there was no use for him. Now Lazarus is dead. Certainly there's no use for him. But Jesus came and called for him. Why are you calling him, Jesus? I got a use for him. He died for my glory and for the glory of my Father. How do you mean, Jesus? When I call him out of his grave he will be a witness of me that I am indeed the Messiah and that I am in the world. So even though nobody got use for him, I got a use for him. So I'm going to call him, come forth, Lazarus. And when Lazarus came forth, he was bound, and Jesus said, Satan, loose him. Loose him and let him go. He took the napkin off his eyes. You recall the parable, don't you? It's the same parable of the donkey. The donkey tied up, no use. The young intellectual tied up, no use. But the Lord hath need of the donkey. The Lord hath need of the colt. And the master has need of a dead people who are no people at all. I'm going to call you. And when you stand up and come forward, not begging anymore, the world will know that the Messiah is in the world. He's not to come, he's present. And he has come to take the kingdom. Take it from whom he pleases and give it to whom he pleases. He got to have power to take the kingdom. He can't be no weak-kneed, belly-dancing preacher and teacher. He's got to be a man of power. No spirit coming, a man coming. When you first see the man, he's not robed in power. He comes like a common man, sowing a seed, teaching a word. But when he comes again, you see him coming in the clouds of heaven, having great power. Power to do what? To take the kingdom from whom he pleases and to give it to whom he pleases. Well, well, well. So you do have some use. God wants you. It ain't Uncle Sam. It's God that wants you. He's saying, I want you. Come forth, Lazarine. Come forth, Lazarus, with your lazy self, sitting around here begging white folks. Come forth, Lazarus. I got a need for you. I want you to bear witness that the Messiah is in the world. Who is this man of wisdom and power? A man came to North America by himself. He used many aliases. But on his departure from us, he said his name was W.F. Muhammad, Master Farad Muhammad. Who did he say he was? He said, I am the Mahdi. I am the guide. I came to guide you to the right path that you may be successful. Master Farad Muhammad came and called for us. And he gave us the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, stood him up and put the call in him. And Elijah Muhammad called us from the bar room, from the motel and the hotel, from the boulevard, from the college, from the wine, from the drugs, and stood us up and cleaned us up, that we may be a witness that we are no longer rejected, no more termed forsaken. We have been redeemed. A redeemer has paid the price. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad worked among us for 44 long years. And when his term was up, he went away. Some say he died. I say he went away. And he left his disciples with a work to do. When you see the colt and the donkey gone and untied, and if anybody say anything, tell them the Lord hath need of the black man and woman. Go, you black men and women of knowledge, and untie the black man and woman who is a slave to white man's false ideas and concepts. Go, black man and woman, and teach the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and free the black man and woman from the binding slavery to the white man. And if the white man said, "What are you doing?" If any man say anything, say to Master, "The Lord hath need of them." You're not doing nothing with us. Let's go to work and put ourselves to use. So many of you would like to say Farrakhan is not useful. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad established my value when he said in the presence of others, "I am more valuable to him than all the wealth that is in the earth." Because that wealth was here when he came and it'll be here when he's gone. He said, "But through you, Brother Farrakhan, I will get all my people. I have established my value." Listen, I don't give a damn who don't think I'm valuable. I'm valuable in the eyes of Allah. I am valuable in the eyes of His Christ. So any move that is made on me, God will retaliate, and so will those who understand my value. Why shouldn't the ministers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad burst forth in this day and time? Whether you are with Farrakhan or not is irrelevant, immaterial. Stand up on what you know and preach what you know. The people are in the valley of the shadow of death, and they are in need of a shepherd. I am doing all that I can and all within my power to make myself useful, that I will be worthy to be saved. But what about you? What is the duty of the civilized man? And if the civilized man fails to perform his duty, what shall be done? You can't say, "Farrakhan, it's your job." The hell it is. It's your job too. When you know the truth, you tell the truth. When you know the way, you show the way. Otherwise, you are making yourself useless, and obsolescence leads to death. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He restores my soul. He leadeth me beside the still water. He leadeth me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk, live, and breathe in the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for God is with me. I will walk through the valley of AIDS, through the valley of death, through the valley of hypertension and stroke and heart failure. I'll walk through the valley of disease and death, fearing no evil. For God, Allah, is with me, and I am with him. Take it or let it alone. I'm not obsolete. I'm very much useful. I plead with you, get out of a state of obsolescence. Get up out of this muck and this mire and stop wallowing in the valley of self-pity. Pitying yourself. What the hell is wrong with you? Pitying yourself. God put you in this condition for his own glory. The world don't know God, but through you, the entire world will know that he lives. He's in the world because he comes to take nothing and make something out of it. He comes to take death and turn it into life. He comes to take non-use and make it useful. And so I plead with you as I leave you. Let us make ourselves useful. Let us be useful to God. Let us be useful to ourselves. It's time out to be made useful to white people. So if it's not to God or for yourself, it's death. Which way you going? You can't continue to be this kind of Negro or nigger any longer. Which way you going? You got to come up out of this life. You got to come up out of this world of filth and degeneracy and clean up and put on the robe that God intends for you to wear in your day of triumph and victory over the forces of evil. So thank you for listening, and may Allah bless you as I greet you in peace. Assalamu alaikum. It's unbelievable. In 1 hour, and I can't believe it. Well, you better believe it. I'm getting out of here now. Thank you very much for coming out and sharing your time with us. I hope that my words didn't anger you. But if they did, you should be. How many of you are here today for your first time? That's he has never been before? Dear brothers and sisters, after listening to what you heard, how many of you believe that what you heard is the truth and is good for us as a people? May I see your hands? Thank you. And my last question, and I don't want you to get excited. You're not under any obligation to do anything but what you just did. And that is come and listen. And you did that. That's the only obligation that you're under, is to try and hear the word and reason with it. So you've done your job. I've tried to do mine. God has his own part in this.
Yes, sir.
And God's part in this is only God can touch the heart of a person and make them desire to become a part of that from which they were taken 400 years ago, and make them desire to be who God created them to be. That's not my job. That's not your job. That's his job. And so I will ask you, of those of you who say it is true, how many of you would like to accept this truth and unite behind the leadership of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and let us get busy and build for ourselves and our people? How many of you would like to do that? May I see your hands, please? Praise be to Allah.